How did you approach career search? And let's start in college. Let's start in college.
I like this credibility thing. One of my like creator influencer mentors told me that authority, authenticity, audience. 3 things you need as an influencer, as a creator. Our only legitimacy right now is
authority. Wait. Say authority,
authenticity, and audience. Like the 3 things you need to identify about yourself to be a proper influencer or creator.
Yeah.
Is you need to have authority over what you're saying. So like to your point, if we're early 20s, late 20s, we could say things about like being a career person or whatever, and then authentic for like not fake people, and then audience you to see like who you're speaking to, and have all those things align, and then people are gonna start respecting you for what you're saying.
I like that.
And then once you build that up, then they listen to anything that you talk.
I usually don't watch all your videos anymore. One, I look for me, and then I watch that piece again.
Yeah.
I was worried it would make the most replayed in your last video because I watched it so many times. But your last video, I actually did watch all the way through, even though it was like I think it was. Because sometimes I feel like you're rambling to an audience. Last video, you just felt like you were rambling, and I enjoyed that.
Sure.
So it was you. Tangents.
Sorry, what was the question?
How did you approach career search?
Oh, okay.
I think we're going to learn this as a skill to stay on
Damn,
top.
where did I even start? Okay, so this is a good point. I have never wanted to do something when I was young. That's important. Like, I've never been the, like, I'm going to be a doctor or, like, I'm going to be a scientist kid. I grew up around a lot of those kids. Yeah. And I always laughed at those kids from a very early age because I was cynical. And I grew up under parents who were very like, you should explore what you want to do and you don't really know what you do. And I also don't come from a family of like, what's the English term for it? I know the Korean term for it. Like, is or ers. Like there's no doctors or lawyers.
Is or ers. Is there one word for that in Korean?
There is.
Like professional?
Professional. But they're, it's called 전문직, which means like specific profession. Like,
okay.
Regardless, you know what I mean. Other than my uncle, my mom's brother, no one's a doctor, no one's lawyers. There's no like, they're all like entrepreneurs. So there's no like, or business people. At RWNL, our school is liberal arts. For those of you guys that don't know what that is, it means you don't have a major. So you could like explore a bunch of things.
That's not what that means.
That's what it starts as. And we're quickly losing our authenticity and our legitimacy. And I started Premed because I was just
I don't know if I knew that.
I was just sold on that idea day one. They were like, we have the highest med school acceptance rate in the world. They're like 96% or some crazy statistic like that. And I actually think it is 96%. They skewed a little bit because I think they tell a lot of kids to quit. Yeah. Don't apply. Out of the kids that apply, it's pretty damn high. So I did it. And funny enough, my first year, my highest grades were my pre-med grades, like my bio grade and my chem grade. But like I had no interest.
What'd you do well in high school? Like subject-wise?
I did very well. That's questionable. I don't know if I did exceptionally well in any of my classes, but I'd say probably history and somewhat math. I did very well in chemistry. Okay. Like chemistry came very naturally to me. So, and my high school was like pretty strong, and my AP Chem I would say was harder than my college Chem. But I did that, and then I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a doctor, and I don't really care about science. We can jump into this later, but like a lot of biology, I don't even know if I believe in. I'm about to get crucified.
I think we want to avoid those.
But
for now.
So I stopped that, and then sophomore year while I was picking classes, again, liberal arts, you could do whatever classes you want in the first years, at least to some degree. And I did all comp sci and business/accounting classes sophomore year without any thought of like what that career was going to be. It's just because it satisfied all my graduation requirements. That's actually a key turning point in my life where I am very like, I need to get everything I want to do done first and then do what actually matters later, like in my mind. Even when I eat the things that I don't want to eat first so that I can leave what I want to eat later.
Brian calls vegetables rabbit food.
Yes. So I want to eat the rabbit food first and then eat the human food.
Yeah.
So
Because you're human.
In an attempt to graduate, and like I wanted that just like all the peace of mind. I did accounting and all that because freshman year I did science and English. So I needed to take care of my like humanities or whatever equivalent. So I took business and I took comp sci. And then this is going to be the like douchey comment of the day. And like, I really don't know if I should say this, but both things came so easy to me. Like and school was such a low priority for me during school, and I didn't want to study. and I never really studied in high school, so I wanted to have the least path of resistance while enjoying college. So I did the two things. Again, sorry for douchey comments, but I did the two things that made me do the least amount of work. And both accounting and comp sci, of course, at advanced levels I got was a little different, but that entire year I got all A's for the first time in my life. I got all A's for both semesters. I got over hundreds in comp sci and accounting, and I did it with very little studying, which got me to think, then what is the logical next step in career progression? Oh, our school is super easy with banking. I'll do banking. Because I realized comp sci our school is not very easy with, and there's not many great paths. You could do it, and I'm sure you'll get a good job, but it seemed like everyone and their mom was talking about banking, and now you have to like strategically position yourself. Did I sit down and go, oh, I'm going to be a great banker if I like do this? No, but it seemed like such an easy path.
Right. So can I sum that up as a business was easy, and I heard it makes a lot of money?
Yeah. Okay. I think
Okay.
that's the easiest way to think about it.
Okay. So what advice do you look like? And I really want to push to early career, and this is already taking a good amount of time, so
Nice.
we're going to be good at this.
I could do this for hours.
Yeah.
I could do this all day.
Yeah. I want to make it more about like 4 people, less about what you. So let's say someone's a senior in college. They don't know what they want to do. Let's say it's the fall again. How do they figure that out?
God damn. They're seniors.
You've probably answered this question. How many people have you consulted in the past year?
Hundreds.
So how many times do you get this question?
Hundreds.
Okay. What do you tell them?
I say my go-to line is hop on a call. And that's solely because I don't believe that college right now is good at identifying what you're good at. I also don't think they're good at telling you what you actually do in jobs. That's how like I created. I don't want to say I created a presence, but my like interest in the creator, influencer, whatever you want to freaking call it, space began with like me being lost amidst banking and not liking banking and realizing I was tricked into doing banking because I didn't hop onto enough calls.
Okay, I want to even back up because we were actually taught how to network at Washington Lane. It's a very pre-professional school with banking and all that. How do I hop on a call, Brian? What does that even mean? I don't have your number.
No.
You could tell everyone who you do.
I mean, I irresponsibly tell people to go on LinkedIn and find their alumni and find some kind of minimal connection and go. I think to your point, we were lucky in the sense that at least I did. We rolled into a school that had that set up and like got you those names, got you those numbers.
How do you even reach out? So let's say like, I want to know how do you phrase that email? And I can give my own advice, but like, okay, if you build in there, that's fine.
I'm careful giving this advice because I think it comes from a like privileged sense of like people who make it and they say go chase your passions. It's very similar because a lot of times now when I reach out, people somewhat know who I am and they search me up so that I get prioritized in their response.
Sure.
But with that in mind, I think people are nicer to students or whatever. You literally find a LinkedIn person. Let's say like you want to work at. Can I expose you? Like you want to work at MuleSoft or Salesforce and you happen to go to Washington Lee, or maybe you're from Boston or something. So you go on LinkedIn and you literally type in Boston MuleSoft or Boston Salesforce, see Mike's name pop up and LinkedIn message you and say, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah student. And then this I've seen work across the board. I've seen people get jobs from this. I've done this myself when I was nobody. You establish some kind of connection so you make them feel connected, or put in a bad way, you can make them feel bad for not responding. And then they jump right back in and they say, okay, at the very least, I can introduce someone else who's younger or more free, or I want to feel good about myself, so I'm going to talk to you. Because I think people underestimate how much other people that are older want an ego stroke and they haven't had it yet.
Yeah.
And they get that so much from answering these calls from high schoolers.
Yeah.
Or from college people, even middle schoolers.
It definitely feels great to help people. I love hopping in those calls. I think to make it even more like direct, like let's say I'm reaching out to Brian, and probably Brian gets a lot of DMs, so probably don't do a YouTuber, but someone else that you know, industry you want to be in, whether that's banking, find someone early career because they probably don't get tons of people reaching out to them. And
Huge
again,
facts.
maybe it's high ego, but not a lot of people asking for advice. Connect with them, and once you connect, you can usually send a message, or you can send a message in that connection. And we're on LinkedIn again here. Say, hey, Brian, Matt, whatever your name is, I just saw you on LinkedIn when I was searching for whatever it was, like jobs in the banking industry. I'm currently a senior or whatever, studying X, Y, and Z. Really interested in learning more about banking. Would you have 30 minutes to hop on a quick phone call? Best, your name. I think that'd be perfect.
I also want to add on that, how do I even describe this? You just said Washington Lee is very good at teaching this networking thing.
Yeah.
You would be amazed But you, I mean, you, but like you
Also,
also.
am I doing a good job at this?
Phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
I realize my bobbing of head is not good. And
that's why I gave you that.
My poor posture is also.
It also makes you concentrate.
It does.
We need to get 2 next time.
Super focused. People don't know what we're saying right now, which blows. Like to me, it's very second nature that if I want to talk to someone, one, I can reach out. Like there's zero cost besides the 15 seconds. Some of you guys younger than us, probably 5 seconds to text us across whatever platforms, like with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Number 2, somewhat like exaggerate who you are to get into these people's DMs or whatever it is.
Yes.
We're in the most, it's dual-sided, but we're in the most accessible time in human period ever, period.
Yes.
Whatever. Like you could theoretically reach out to Elon Musk right now via Twitter and say, I'm this kid who has this brilliant idea and tweet at him. And if he happens to find it, you are now taking off. And if you didn't, it costs you 5 seconds to tweet it out. But this like pure mental model of like, I can reach out. I realize for so many people that I've talked to one-on-one, whether they be 15 or 40, is mind blowing. They're like, how could I do that? I'm no one. Or like they're busy. So what? Who cares?
People want to talk. They have an ego. It feels so good.
You're busy too. Yeah. And I think that ego part, I think people don't understand because they haven't been reached out to before either. But I think you need to put yourself in the shoes and realize, like, let's say you are a 16-year-old and you know everything about Pokemon cards, like more than me. Sorry for like stereotyping, but like a 12-year-old reaches out to you via Instagram DMs based on your Pokemon page. Yo, like, can you teach me more about Pokemon cards? You're telling me that doesn't make you feel great, like phenomenal for what you've done. But imagine you're a 30, 40-year-old who's in a boring, stupid job. Sorry, and have been doing that for like 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Don't feel motivated by anything. Hate your friggin' life. But then this kid DMs you and says, "Hey, like, I really want to learn about your job."
Right.
15 minutes out of your day, and they're shaking on the phone and saying, "Yo, like, can you teach me?"
And it's gonna be hard. You're gonna be nervous. You're gonna be nerve-wracking.
Nothing makes you feel better.
Yeah. I think one thing I want to add too, especially if you find someone 2 years in a new job, 2 years in a new career, they're gonna feel like maybe 1 or 3 things. One, they'll be 2 years in, really loving that job and want to take, because they love it, they probably want to share that love. In this kind of situation I'm in, like, I would love to talk about my job all day long. I think it's so cool. I want other people to be in this field. 2, maybe they friggin' hate their job. They made a giant bad mistake and they want to prevent people from doing that. They wish someone had told them not to do it. They wish someone had told them some different advice because they hate their job. And then probably the third category, which probably most people fall in, they don't hate it, they don't love it, but then they're probably still happy to talk about it just because maybe they're still figuring out, maybe thinking out loud will help them figure out their careers, what they want to do, and it's just fun to guide people. And people don't get very many DMs. And you worked at a very in-demand industry with banking. I'm in a giant tech company that's a Fortune almost 100. I don't get that many DMs to reach out to me. I get some, which I guess more than a lot of people, but
I don't even get DMs either. You just brought up a fascinating point. I am a publicly available figure. Like I have like openly said like this consult, whatever. I would say the number of people that have reached out, even though I am available by Instagram, I'm available by YouTube, I'm available by Twitter. I have exposed my phone number before. Like the Google sheet is open there accidentally. And
I was like, let's not do that.
And I think there's the proportion of people that reached out versus the people that have seen me or like probably wanted to talk to me, less than 0.001%. And they stop themselves. Every single one of those people stop themselves. Whereas on the flip side, I have high schoolers from like Brooklyn Tech asking me about like startup advice. There's a guy, I don't want to expose him, but I think he calls himself like the ghost of Harvard or something. He's a 15-year-old kid. He brought me into some crypto club. He DMs me like every week. And I respond because I feel responsible for this kid and I want him to do well. Yeah. And it's sick that a 15-year-old is like looking up to me. I'm 10 years older than him now. I'm like a real adult.
Opa.
It's a dude. It's a dude.
It's only girls to guys.
It's a dude. Be careful. You should not do those kind
of things. I have one tiny toe in Korean culture and I like to pretend. The only way to wrap up that conversation is you don't know what you want to do and you're in college or even early career. Reach out to people. We talked about how to structure that email, that text, that LinkedIn DM. LinkedIn's probably the best way because it's the professional network. Sign up for a LinkedIn if you don't have it. Put a nice profile on there. I made people do this in our group. Never mind, I don't remember that.
Okay.
I've had people sign up for LinkedIn before. Have no typos in there. Have what you do. Anything you can do to stand out. Just no typos. Clean, nice profile picture. start adding connections. Doesn't matter if you don't know them. Just try to get to the 500 connections, which just sounds like a lot, but it looks good on LinkedIn. DM them, reach out, have these phone calls. I had a ton of phone calls. You had a lot of phone calls.
Tons of phone calls.
I was in a weird scenario too, where I double majored in business and computer science, which and Brian almost did this, but he wasn't quite cool enough to get there. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had so many options, which sounds kind of bad, but we also graduated into 2019, which is one of the best job markets ever. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like a quantitative analyst. I wanted to do business stuff. I looked at banking. I looked at becoming a software engineer. I talked to people. I also interviewed a ton. I don't know if that's good advice because I don't know if you can get a ton of interviews these days. I've heard sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Another way to skip the interview is you reach out to someone, you talk to them, and maybe they'll refer you. Maybe they'll offer that up. Maybe you impress them with how you, and research their company, research what they've done. I'm assuming, I think we're talking to a younger audience here. You know how to use Google. You know how to research companies.
For sure.
There's YouTube channels out there. There's podcasts out there. Listen to them, watch them, and you'll figure out how to reach out to people. So you started out, you reached out to people. You got your job in banking. You got your job in banking. You worked in Chicago. What was banking like? You first day of the job, you started your career in investment banking, which very lucrative out of college. Golden handcuffs. If you don't know what that is, maybe we'll have time to talk about it.
For sure.
What was your first internship like? So you applied, you got in, and the first day in the job for banking is an internship. I'll let Brian explain this in a second, but basically it's not actually when you start the job, but it's the summer before, 2 summers before? No, summer before. Summer before is your first time on the job starting this.
You want to talk about the first day, the first season?
First day.
First day.
What do you thought, expectations? You got this. I know you're more open about your salary. You can talk about your initial summary and offer.
You're super excited. There's just no word to describe it because for a lot of these guys, excluding me actually, because I'm super thankful, but for many of them, their entire life has built up to this moment. Like they have been told since they were age 5, age 6 by their parents, like you're gonna be a banker, or like they see their dad being a banker, they're like, oh, I'm gonna be a banker, or they've seen it on TV or whatever. So their entire life has accumulated to this single moment. You feel the energy in that room, and all these guys are like, suited up, and they're all still looking young. A lot of them look too big or too small in their suit or too big on their suit, whatever. And it feels very prestigious. Like all these banks try to keep up this image, whether it be small, whether it be big, bulge, or whatever, to make this facade, or maybe it's reality about them making a lot of money, them having this prestige, having this luxurious outlook. And obviously, like I'm not going to go into the annoying details of like day one being training and not actually on the job or whatever, but you get these fancy binders and you get a little backpack and everyone's names across the seat, and the boss or the CEO or the chairman comes up and gives a little presentation about company culture and how they started. You're like, whoa, like I've made it. Like I'm a part of this business now. I'm part of blank corp or blank international, whatever you want to call it. And you feel sexy. I think that's the right word to describe it. Sexy. You feel sexy. And after a week or so of training, you get placed on the desk and you start making intros to these company people. And then for the first time ever, I think this is the peak moment right here. You're 19, 20, and these 40-year-olds start treating you as relatively equals for the first time in your life. Like you have gone through 16 years of a adult-child relationship of like professor-kid, parent-kid, teacher-kid, and then finally you're just on a first-name basis with some guy who's probably making hundreds if not millions of dollars saying, hey, Brian, can you run this for me? Or Brian, I'll see you in the meeting. Yes, he's telling you what to do. He or she is probably looking down at you as a lower person on the hierarchy, but there's this weird essence that fills where you're like, whoa, I'm actually kind of an adult now. And I'm getting paid for this, like real money. And I'm sitting in a room doing decisions that affect real life and no longer case studies. And it almost feels surreal. I still remember during that summer internship, you don't get to touch much, but there was one deal or whatever that I actually somewhat contributed to. And I started going through this like spiral of like, whether or not how big of an impact, I directly contributed to $100 or multi-$100 million something and changed the economic situation in the United States to some degree.
Not to mention, I want to back up too. It's not just like what company you're doing this at, but also what city you're doing this at. You're not in New York City, which is a phenomenal city we can talk about. My God, so many topics. Not in New York City, but you're in the second city, the city that rose up with the Gilded Age, highly competitive with New York in the 19th century, beautiful skyscrapers. You're in a big, bustling, top 10 global city in the world.
Shout out Chicago.
How did that feel? Had you been there before?
So I was there only for interviews. Growing up in high school, the only college I wanted to go to was U Chicago. The only college, based on nothing. Like based on maybe rankings, but it was the first school I think we went on a college tour to, and I was like, this place is sick. Fun goes to die, whatever.
I was gonna sneak that in there.
Looked at Chicago, we're like, whoa. But very basic 15, 16-year-old mentality.
Their own logo motto, by the way, is where fun comes to die.
They have shirts that say
phenomenal
fun comes
school,
to die.
but they like the library.
I used to establish myself, probably in hindsight, too progressive for me, but not aside. Actually, I'm happy to mention it. But so Chicago in my mind has always had been a North Star. Like I was like, it wasn't like I'm diehard Chicago and none of my family's from Chicago, but it was just always like, holy crap, Chicago. And I think New York felt intimidating to me. I'll come clean about that. Chicago felt, I wouldn't say.
You can't do this well.
I can't do
those.
it. Chicago felt not approachable, but definitely not scary. And it felt romanticized. And
yes.
I liked it.
It's
really liked it.
Yeah.
I remember even during my LinkedIn interview, some parts of it I BS and I was like, oh, I'm so enthusiastic about banking. But
wait. They flew you out there, right?
Of course.
Talk about that. How
did
that feel?
It was multi-step process. We did like an interview on campus. And because we're a core school, actually the founder of my company went to my school, our alumni older brother by, multi 30 years. But he had dinner with all of us. I passed that interview. They called me to what's called the Super Day. They flew us out. Night before the interview, they take us to this nice dinner with a bunch of their people. Fun fact, this is actually when the interview begins. You think this is just like a calm dinner.
Before. Oh, it's you.
And everyone obviously kind of knows this, but they sit you very...
I assume you're in a suit.
Everyone's suited
tie.
up, purposely sitting in front of all these people. It's very...
Nice dinner.
Very nice dinner. It's one-to-one. They almost... I don't know if this was intentional on my part, but no one at that dinner was at or from my school. These were guys from other schools.
So no biases.
No biases.
They're coming in fresh.
And, they're just checking you out. I don't think they anything, but I know that this is part of it because when I was on the other side of this, when I was a full-time employee and I was interviewing kids, they would have us volunteer to go to these lunches. And then afterwards, I would rate them and talk about or mark, like, are they a good fit or whatever it is. And in fact, for kids that I didn't actually interview. So they actually wanted my insight based on that social food interaction. So that dinner is part of the interview. Super nice dinner. Next day, I have a round of 6 back-to-back interviews, like 3 hours total at this nice office. I go in that interview room is my name, like on a little like paper placard outside.
Right.
Brian John Washington University.
Oh, and you just stay in the same room and they come in and out.
I go inside, 2 people, talk to them, 2 people, talk to them. I think they purposely kind of structure it where in the middle of it, I had a guy that I knew from my school to kind of like, I think, calm me down, like reassure me. I will say also, first time I'm kind of admitting this, 2 interviews in, like I knew I was going to get it. Like I had all the answers, all the alumni helped me so much.
Was this your first Super Day? And maybe you can explain what a Super Day is.
This was my first Super Day. This was actually the week where I thought I was the coolest guy on campus. So Super Day is like banking, consulting, professional services have these final interview days where you have intense back-to-back interviews, probably 25 to 30 minutes from all these people at the company. It's a good way for you to get flown out there and do various things. So the interviews range from technical things to behavioral things. Some of them are like brain teasers. You have one interview where one guy plays a hard guy, one plays a soft guy. I don't know how intentional that is, but they try to do it. And the reason why I said that it was the coolest week ever is because, slight tangent, but once you land one of these word spreads, and then kind of like fraternity rush, once you get picked up by one company, other banks are like, oh, that guy's hot. Like, I want that also. So there was this week where I got this interview, then I got like another Super Day, and then a third company had me skip all the other processes and go straight to a Super Day because I told them that I was running out of time. So you start playing these games.
What was the first round? I know we can back up, and then Walter Isaacson, I'm going on a tangent now.
Let's do it.
He actually talked to them, led Lex Friedman. I don't know if it's Friedman or Friedman.
Friedman.
You should listen to the podcast with him, but he talks about telling a story. And this is more of us talking about a podcast on the podcast.
Sure.
He talked about telling a story, and one of the things, he was, I think, the CEO of Time Magazine at one point, and he was the CEO. He always didn't like to be CEO, and he had transition into writing these great biographies, as we all know, from Einstein, he's not Hamilton, Steve Jobs, infamous Steve Jobs biography.
Elon recently.
Elon's the big one now.
The CRISPR woman.
I'm
trying to finish that. So apologies for not knowing her name.
Cracking the code.
Dudna. Yeah.
Cracking the code. How he talks about telling a story, and this is what we're rushing. I don't want you to rush in these podcasts. It's one thing at a time. And someone told him this. It was like, I don't know the exact quote, but it's basically like, don't try to pull the end too quickly and the beginning too, like, one piece at a time. Just like flow along and like, so how do you get your interview? How do you get there? How do you feel? Like, we need all this context and this historical stuff. So I assumed you networked for the Super Day. What was the initial rounds like? How did you, and we're going really practical here because I am thinking about cutting this in little like TikToks. I have so many ideas. How do you you crafted a resume? We haven't talked too much about resumes. Let's do that later. But you've applied. Let's say you get your first round interview. Did you prep before that? When did you start prepping? How do you prep for banking? Let's back up to like, let's not do resume prep, but everything but.
Wow. Where do I even begin? So
this is probably the last question we have.
There's I would say 3 parts to banking interview structure. So one is networking, and I don't mean the networking we just talked about where you try to figure out what you like. I'm talking about the like suck up to bankers so that they pull you up and give you information that you can use in your interviews type of networking. And you have an automatic leg up if you're a target school or a school that these banks recruit out of, because 1, they come to you, and 2, you already have people at that company that went to your school who are willing to help you out. And there's this alumni feeling. In fact, some companies have like referral bonuses. I don't know how they work for summer analysts, but in some cases there's an incentive for them to bring you in. Regardless, there's that component. And then that naturally, we're out of memory on the video.
Okay.